In the land of Middle-earth, there exists a tale that few remember, and yet it lingers like an echo in the wind through ancient forests. It is a tale not of great wars or valiant heroes, but of a quiet sorrow, of a loss that haunts the mighty Ents, the tree shepherds of Fangorn Forest. The story of the Ent-Wives is a strange and unsettling one, filled with melancholy, mystery, and the slow decay of a love that was never meant to vanish. In their absence, the Ents roam Fangorn Forest, searching with mournful eyes, forever calling out for those who have been lost to time. In the elder days, before even the rise of men and their kingdoms, the world was full of great and ancient powers. Elves walked in forests still untamed, and the earth was alive with beings born of nature's own deep-rooted magic. Among these were the Ents, tree herders created by Yavanna, the queen of the earth, to protect the trees from the axes and fires of creatures who did not understand their beauty and purpose. The Ents, like the trees they watched over, were slow, patient, and wise. But unlike the stillness of the trees, the Ents were filled with a quiet but profound consciousness, spirits of wood and stone, who could speak and walk, though they did so rarely and only with great care. In those ancient days, the Ents were not alone in their vigil over the forests. Alongside them were the Ent-Wives, female counterparts to the Ents, who shared their strength and their love for nature, though in a manner very different. Where the Ents cherished the wild, untamed growth of the forests, where trees grew tall and free under the open skies, the Ent-Wives found joy in nurturing more ordered, fruitful lands. They loved gardens, fields, and orchards. They taught the early peoples of Middle-earth how to tend the earth, how to grow crops and cultivate flowers, and in doing so, they brought a gentleness and an artistry to the wild world, shaping it into something both beautiful and bountiful. For a long time, the Ents and the Ent-Wives lived in harmony. Though their passions were different, they were not opposed. The Ents delighted in the natural, untamed forests of Middle-earth, whilst the Ent-Wives shaped the lands they touched with careful, deliberate hands. But over time, a slow divergence began to grow between them, a difference that seemed small at first, but widened into an unbridgeable chasm. The Ent-Wives, ever seeking order and fruitfulness, grew weary of the wild forests. They did not wish to wander endlessly among the towering trees when nature reigned free and fierce. Instead, they longed to be among the gardens and the cultivated fields where every plant and tree was in its proper place, bearing fruits and flowers under their care. Slowly, they moved eastward, leaving behind the dark, untamed woods for lands they could shape and control. The Brown Lands, which in later ages would become a barren, desolate place, were once the garden lands of the Ent-Wives, a fertile, blooming realm where all things grew in their season. The Ents, however, remained in their beloved woodlands. They could not understand the need for such order, for they loved the trees as they were, wild and free, growing to their full height without the guiding hands of any gardener. And so the Ents and the Ent-Wives began to live apart, meeting only occasionally, when the Ents would wander to the gardens of the Ent-Wives to visit them. Though these meetings were filled with joy, there was a growing distance between them, a quiet, creeping sadness that neither side could fully understand. The Ents longed for the Ent-Wives to return to the forests, to wander with them among the ancient woods, but the Ent-Wives had made their choice. They were devoted to their gardens, to the fields and orchards, and though they still loved the Ents in their way, their hearts were rooted in lands they had cultivated. It was a slow parting, a gentle unravelling of something that had once been whole. The Ents, in their slow way, did not grasp the full weight of the loss until it was too late. As the ages passed, the world of Middle-earth changed. Wars came and went, and the tides of power shifted between elves, men, and darker forces. But the Ents remained in their forests, watching as the world moved around them. The Ent-Wives, too, remained in their garden lands, far from the turmoil of the world, or so it would seem. For in time came the Dark Lord Sauron, in his thirst for power. His shadow stretched far and wide, and in his wake, destruction soon followed. The once great gardens of the Ent-Wives, their fields and orchards, fell into ruin. War ravaged the lands they had tended so carefully, and fire swept across the earth, leaving only ash and barren soil where once there had been life. The Ent-Wives disappeared in that time, lost in the chaos and destruction that swept across Middle-earth at Sauron's hand. The Ents, far away in their forests, did not know what had become of their long-lost companions. They searched for them, calling out in their deep, resonant voices that echoed through the trees, but there was no answer. For many long years the Ents wandered in search of them, leaving the safety of Fangorn Forest to walk far and wide in Middle-earth. They searched the lands where the Ent-Wives had once dwelled, but they found nothing. The gardens were gone, the fields now barren, and the Ent-Wives forever silent. To this day, the Ents have not given up hope. Though many ages have passed since the fall of the Ent-Wives, the Ents themselves still remember them with deep, aching sadness. Treebeard, the eldest of the Ents, speaks of them with a mournful longing, his voice filled with the weight of centuries of sorrow. "We have lost them," he says. "We don't know where they are. We have been searching for them ever since." There is something haunting in the way the Ents speak of the Ent-Wives, as though they are not merely lost, but somehow just beyond reach, almost close enough to touch, but always slipping away, like a dream fading with the dawn. Some say that the Ent-Wives are not gone, but hidden, perhaps asleep in some forgotten corner of the world, waiting for the day when they might return to their gardens. Others believe that they perished in the wars of old, their gentle spirits extinguished by the fires of Sauron. But the Ents do not know, and perhaps they never will. In the dark forests of Fangorn, the Ents continue their vigil, their deep voices echoing through the trees as they call for the Ent-Wives in vain. It is a story of love and loss, not marked by the violence of battle, but by the slow erosion of time, the drifting apart of two kindred spirits who were once united in purpose, and now separated by the vastness of the cold world. The fate of the Ent-Wives remains one of the greatest mysteries of Middle-earth, a tale wrapped in shadow and sorrow. Did they perish in the fires of war? Were they scattered to the winds, never to be seen again? Or do they yet still live, somewhere, waiting in silence for the Ents to find them? It is a question that haunts the hearts of the Ents, and perhaps it haunts the reader as well. For there is something deeply unsettling in the thought of a love so deep and ancient, torn apart not by malice, but by time and circumstance. In the end, the tale of the Ent-Wives is a reminder that not all loss comes with the great clash of swords or the roar of battle. Sometimes, it is the quietest losses that cut the deepest. Those that come with the slow, creeping passage of time, until one day, you realize that something you cherished is gone, and no matter how far you search, you will never find it again. The Ents, for all their wisdom and strength, could not stop the slow drift that took the Ent-Wives away from them. And now they walk in silence through the forests of Middle-earth, forever calling, forever searching for that which they had lost. But only the wind in the trees is now there to answer them.